Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would sit down and do a video for you guys and gals. Get a sip of my Bootopia. Alright, let's talk a little bit about arm training. There's a lot of conflicting viewpoints on this stuff. You get people on one end who are like, oh, the key to just getting bigger arms is to just train your arms, lots of arm training, and it will, automatically give you bigger arms. And then you get other people on the other extreme who will say things like, well, no, you can build big arms just from your big compound movements. Let's be realistic here. And this is speaking as someone who is doing quite a bit of arm specialization, because for me, they're my weakest body part, but that's genetics due to structure, other stuff, and a long history of only doing, a lot of the other, meaning my arms haven't always gotten as much volume. They've gotten better over time, and I started doing a lot more bicep work this year, obviously. But triceps I've done a fair amount of for powerlifting. But that being said, a lot of people have noted, my arms have come along quite a bit. But as someone who's been observing this a long time, I want to make a couple points here. Number one, generally the guys who have the best arms do have big overall torsos. And more often than not, they oftentimes have a well-developed body. In other words, go back and look at someone like Arnold. Get someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was well known for, when I was younger, for the arm development, right? But he was pretty big everywhere. I mean, Arnold could squat over 500 pounds. Let's keep this in mind. Okay? Did a lot of his arm development come from his chest and back and shoulder training? Of course it did. It contributes. Now, I will go so far as to say that some guys genetically can build pretty dang good arms purely off those movements. Right? We all know this. We all know this. This is the case. How many guys, though, and again, how many guys, though, do you know who build great arms purely off their compound movements? I'm going to say I only really knew of one. Okay, I've only met one. But here's the thing. When I chatted with him further, then I caught him one day doing some strict curls, up against the post. And I'm like, well, you've got massive arms, and you said you built it all doing just, your rows and pressing. And he's like, oh, well, yeah, I don't really do much tricep work, but keeping in mind, guy was really, really strong on all his pressing. I watched the guy doing some seated behind the neck presses with 225. Now, granted, they were not full range of motion. Okay. He would do sets of 10 with 275 on the bench press. Okay, so yeah, he had pretty good triceps. And he says, well, I mostly just row for my biceps. But he's like, every now and then I like to come in and just crank out a few sets of really hard strict curls. Now, keeping in mind, guy had over 20 years of continuous training experience. So, over time, and he was at a heavier body weight. He was not a small guy. He wasn't particularly lean. In that context, yeah, but he would still do curls. And that's about the only one I've known who a guy who really had really big arms that way. You go to the other extreme, and you see someone like, say, I guess Matt Irving. Someone linked me one of his things again today, and I'm like, oh, I already followed him. I've mentioned him before. Guy due to some injuries or some sort of nerve damage can't really press or pull. Guy's got a pretty good physique. He's got great arms because he does tons and tons and tons and tons of arm work. But interestingly enough, it's still giving him some decent lats. His chest is obviously lacking, but the guy's actually got a pretty decent back. But a lot of it's from different forms of curls, standing curls, barbell curls. So you get those, but then here's the thing that I would say to guys. But you still look at that guy and realize his chest is disproportionately small. Is that really what people want? And the other thing you have to think about in terms of efficiency. How much curling did he have to do to build those fantastic arms? The guy does huge amounts of curling. He lives on curls. Now, I'm doing a fair amount myself, because I've seen that does work for him. And I've definitely seen that work. and it's something I'm working on myself, and it is helping. But here's the thing. Is that the most efficient way to do it? And in other words, if your goal is to build bigger arms, you probably should get bigger overall. And this is what you've always seen people saying. It's a good idea to get bigger overall. Plus, think in terms of efficiency. Okay? Think in terms of efficiency. Those bigger, heavier compound movements are contributing certain stimulus to your biceps and triceps. And in some cases, they work the heads differently. I mean, a perfect example. Pressing tends to build the lateral head of the tricep more. A lot of the extensions work the longer head. Really doing that combination, probably pretty important. In other words, you should be doing a lot of chest pressing if you want really big triceps. But you probably are going to need to come in and do some extensions. Okay? Same thing on your curls and everything. Yeah, pull-ups and stuff absolutely will contribute. Rows less so. I am great at rows. I have always noted people note that my back is probably my best body part. Didn't carry over to my biceps that well, but there's data on that. There's been studies showing that vertical pulling versus horizontal pulling are not the same in terms of bicep stimulus. They don't seem to be either EMG studies or hypertrophy studies. All right, so there's some truth to that. So curls absolutely seem to make a lot of sense. Hard to build big arms, just all pull-ups. But do they contribute? Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. But the best of both worlds works really, really, really well. Okay? Here's what I'm saying to you guys. Don't get caught up in either extreme. Do both. You're going to be better off. You're going to have better arm development. You're going to be more balanced if you really focus on both. Do lots of pulling and lat work, and then do your curls. Okay? You want really good triceps, you should be doing a lot of chest pressing, and then do your extensions after. Okay, there's your balance. And then the other thing comes down to diet and everything else, right? If your diet and lifestyle itself is not conducive to building muscle, do you really think you're going to build big arms? In other words, if your calories, your protein, your overall muscle growth, and the whole anabolic signaling in your body is not elevated, it's not in a good place, do you really think you're going to build really great 17 or 18-inch arms? Come on. It's never going to happen. So really, there's a lot of balance to be had. And there's a certain point where say, people just use some common sense with it. Right? There's a same middle ground. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.